Well, in the studio we have Chris Johnson. He's the Bureau Chief for Fairfax Media for the Canberra Times, The Age and the Sydney Morning here in Parliament House. He's going to put the week in perspective. But first, let's just have a look, an excerpt from Question Time yesterday, the last question of the last question time of a big week in politics.
On Monday, 39 Liberal MPs voted against the Prime Minister's leadership. On Tuesday, the Defence Minister failed to explain the Prime Minister's minute-to-midnight submarine deal. On Wednesday, the Treasurer insisted the government sticking to its unfair budget. And today, the Prime Minister has refused to acknowledge his list of broken promises. Prime Minister, if this is what the first week of good government looks like, how bad is next week going to be?
I am the first to admit that we went through a difficult few days at the end of last week and the beginning of this week. I am the first to admit that, Madam Speaker. This is a government that wherever you look is doing the right thing by the people of Australia. You look opposite, what's the policy of the Leader of the Opposition? Bring back the carbon tax, bring back the mining tax, bring back the boats. You look opposite, Madam Speaker, and what do you see? You see a Labor Party which was the most incompetent government in Australia's history. They've learnt nothing and they cannot change. You look opposite, Madam Speaker, and you see a Leader of the Opposition completely untrusted by the people who know him best and who work with him most closely. The distrust between Rudd and Shorten was intense and enduring. The Gillard camp was contemptuous, considering him weak and duplicitous. Neither side trusted him and neither side revised its view, Madam Speaker. This man is utterly unworthy of ever being a candidate to govern this country. And, Madam Speaker, on that rather magnificent note, if I may say so myself, I ask that further questions be placed on the notice paper.
All right, Chris Johnson, on that rather magnificent note, I mean, do you think the Prime Minister's learnt from the last week?
Well, he hasn't had a great week and he's hardly had a vote of confidence from his own people. But it was interesting that after the spill and after that sort of, the dejected image of him alone there in Parliament shortly that day. But after the spill, interesting that he has gone on the attack after that, and not all worked.
Do you think it works? I mean, he does go on the attack. He is a fighter, but say he obviously overreached, quickly corrected himself when he made references to the Holocaust, but perhaps a more strategic tactical mistake. Some people have said that the attack that he launched on the Human Rights Commissioner, Gillian Trigg, after she's released a report that in many ways is very critical of Labor as well as the government. Do you think that always going on the front foot always works for him?
That was an extraordinary attack and I don't think it bodes well at all. I think generally the Prime Minister is trying to say, look, business as usual, this is me, I'm still this fighting Prime Minister, but that response to the children in detention report and the quite personal attack on the Commissioner and the Commissioner was way over the top. And I think not only there'll be people within his own party, but people generally, the electorate have been looking, we've got more of the same, and it was pretty unsightly.
Now, the big set piece coming up is the budget, still 2 or 3 months away. That was where the government really started running into trouble last year. Now, there seems to be a lot of reporting, a lot of commenting of people who have appeared on this program, Liberal Party backbenchers, talking about a completely different strategy, turning the budget much more into a narrowly focused, almost an accounting document, and then setting off some of these, trying to open up a more wide debate on these big intergenerational issues such as medical expenditure, higher education, welfare. Is that a result, do you think, of this leadership turmoil, that they are taking a different approach?
I think they have to. They have to look at it. The interesting thing here, though, is we're talking about the next budget. They still haven't got the last one sorted out, and that's just the dilemma they've got. And I think they have to somehow say to Voting Australia, hey, we're thinking of you. We can give you a little bit of ease here, but they've got this, the massive, black holes and where we're out to take care of. It's a real dilemma for them.
Is it clear what their strategy is there? You've got Glenn Stevens saying today, hey, you know, the economy could do with a bit of a kick along, seem to be suggesting, you know, interest rates alone can't do it. You've got Joe Hockey, you know, we're sticking with our strategy from last year. The Prime Minister, I think, trying to indicate, no, much more family friendly. Is it clear in any way what their strategy
It's not
is?
clear to us, it's not clear to them, I don't think. And I think that's been the whole message this whole week. There have been so many mixed messages from within government ranks, you know, GP payments on the budget, submarines. There's just been, you know, different messages coming out of the government ranks there that it's clear that they're not all on the same page. So how do we understand it? I think it's very interesting. Straight after the spill, or not long after the spill, the next day or the day after, it was the foreign investment announcement, and it looked like Barnaby, it was out on the farm, looked like Barnaby was taking the Prime Minister and the Treasurer out to pasture for that announcement. This might be symbolic.
Not out behind the back shed with a rifle, one would hope. Now, the government, the backbenchers pretty much closed ranks, as one might expect after the spill. But in the background, amongst themselves, how restless is the backbench?
They're restless. I think there is this sort of consensus that they will give the Prime Minister a little time now, but I don't think it probably hit the execution deadline he gave himself, 6 months. It won't go beyond that. It could be before that, but he has to improve because they are restless.
So the budget is shaping as the next big sort of the critical point?
That's quite pivotal, I think, yes. And I think we will see more of the Prime Minister taking ownership of this one, and if he believes he's got a good one to sell, I guess, so yes.
So I guess that's the other question. Joe Hockey, how's his future looking?
He obviously, if he's the next biggest loser out of this, if the Prime Minister were to go. So I think the budget for him is a make or break as well. There's a lot of unhappiness about his performance within his ranks, and that the Malcolm Turnbull factor, the shadow over that. At least, you know, there's talk of, you know, Malcolm Turnbull. You know, they wanted him for leader, but there's also this, you know, would he make a better treasurer? So Joe can't be feeling too comfortable at all.
And what is Malcolm Turnbull? How do you expect him to behave in the coming months in the lead up to the budget? Does he actually have to do much?
I don't think he has to do anything. I think he'll keep his head down and just see how it plays out. I'll tell you, it has been great. I think particularly in the aftermath of this has been Julie Bishop. Her response the next day, you know, leadership spills to say yesterday that was a great line, but her speech about the two of the Bali Nine that are on death row, that was just, you know, incredible speech. I think she's really the one to watch at the moment. Which is an interesting point about Labor. Labor are happy with the outcome of the spill. They wanted to keep the Prime Minister there. They see him as a wounded Prime Minister. They have a plan. They have a plan in place for Malcolm Turnbull, and you could see that strategy has been changing over the last week. Even the week or two before the spill, they're changing the attack, and it's on Malcolm Turnbull. So if Malcolm Turnbull had to walk out of there as the leader, Labor were confident they were ready. If Julie Bishop or anyone else for that matter had walked out of there as the leader, Labor would have been thrown quite a curveball and might not have been able to know how to react to that.
Okay, Chris Johnson, thanks for your insights today.
Thanks, Chris.